Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abby.
That's me.
That's you.
And you.
You know what just absolutely repulses me?
What? I was not expecting that.
Bad friends.
Ew, gross. Get them away from me.
I hate a bad friend.
I hate a bad friend too. Get them out of here.
I've been a bad friend.
What?
I mean, I've been a bad friend at times in life.
I doubt it.
Well,
You're a pretty good friend.
I'm a good friend. For the most part, I'm a good friend.
Yeah.
I'm not always perfect. I make mistakes.
No, you're a real douche sometimes.
Yeah. But I try my best.
Yeah.
Relationships can be really messy.
They can be complicated.
And
Here's the
friendships can
thing.
equally be messy. What's a thing?
Let's be honest.
I hate honesty too. Let's not do honesty.
Not on this podcast.
Ugh.
We're going to pretend that everything's perfect.
We're land of the happy people where everything works out so good for all of us.
What's funny is you get a really serious voice when you said happy people. It's we're the happy people instead of like, we're the happy people.
Everything's so perfect.
It's perfect. Okay.
We're Instagram perfect.
Here's the thing. Let's be honest. I love friends and friends love me. And yet there is all kinds of ways that drama and buttons and feelings and hurts and it just gets complicated.
Messes
sometimes.
happen.
Messes happen.
Worlds collide and then they explode.
Yeah. Intimacy is the thing that hurts us the most and the thing that heals us the most.
Great point.
And so lots of us have our biggest protectors around intimacy, our biggest fears around intimacy. And some of us have just never learned how to have intimacy.
That's real.
Like if you didn't learn how to, like our parents teach us how to bond.
Wait, you're not talking about sex? Why do I say that? Because the word intimacy for so many people communicates sex.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. When you use the word intimacy, most people I come in my office, I'm like, do you guys have intimacy? Oh, we have sex about, 3 times a week. What? No, you don't even know that the word intimacy exists beyond this. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Well, okay. What I was going to say is you learn a lot about attachment and intimacy and
Connection.
bonding
Yep.
and connection through your parents when you're 0 to 7. That's when you learn how to actually have intimacy. And then you can have trauma in your life that also impacts that. And so some people have just never learned how to do friendship well.
Yeah. It doesn't mean
they
they're
watched
bad.
their parents and their parents were horrible. Like maybe your parent has never asked you a question.
Yeah.
Then you
Or
would
maybe
never know you should ask other people questions.
your parents never had friends.
Yeah. So you don't know
Besides
what it looks
themselves.
like.
So you're like, I don't know. Mom and dad never had anyone come over to the house ever. And they never really did long-term relationships. They kind of hated everybody and stuck to themselves.
I actually know a lot of parents like that.
There are a lot of parents like that.
A lot of parents like that. Or maybe you're polypopular and then you're just going to love this.
Polypopular?
Polypopular. And you're just going to love this episode because it's just about how to be a friend better. How to be good at doing friendship.
How to love your friends well, be a good friend.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times I will have people come into my space and be like, people don't care about me. I don't have any good friends. And I'm like, well, when's the last time you were a good friend to somebody? How are you being a friend? How are you showing up to life?
Totally.
And to some people's credit, they actually are trying to love really well. And people haven't learned how to be good friends.
Yeah.
So you have a mixture of people. Some people who aren't good friends in the first place, so that's why they don't have good friends. And some who show up to be good friends and nobody's learned.
And they keep picking the wrong people.
Over and over again.
Yeah. So I guess this list is going to be something that's like a list of how you can grow to be a friend, but maybe also the things to look for other good friends.
Right. Because the one thing that we can't do is demand that people be what we want them to be.
Well, I mean, we can. It just doesn't work very well.
Yeah, it never works out. But so the whole list isn't about how can we fix other people, but how can we pick decent people and how can we become the person that we want in our life? And you can look at it as a relationship tool inside the context of romance, but really we want to just focus a lot on friends.
Friends.
I have some incredible friends. I've had some friends that have devastated me in the past.
Yep.
that have betrayed me.
Yep.
That have betrayed my trust and stuff like that. And it's very easy. I want to add this. It's very easy to
Wait, are you talking about?
Oh, yeah. It's so easy to become very bitter and jaded about friendships where we shut down.
Yes. I'm not letting anybody else close to me.
No, what's the point in one more friendship where they're going to leave, they're going to betray me, they're going to walk out? And I think that some of you...
I see that. As people get older, they have less and less friends because their hope, they're like, no, this is just going to hurt again. Yeah. What's the point?
It's going to end in them trying to sleep with my husband.
Oh, that would be real weird for you. if you got a friend who wanted to sleep with your husband.
Right. But I mean, those are the types of things you have, destructive history of stuff. And hopefully inside of this journey, if nothing else, there's some of you that have had hopelessness around this area, and hopefully this conversation begins to inspire you to open up your heart again.
Absolutely. And
open up your heart to trying again and risking again. And I think that that's a beauty of part of learning how to come alive inside of life is risk. And learning how to risk in the face of pain and not allowing pain to dictate our future moving forward.
Absolutely.
And so that's something great to think about as we're starting this off. Like, hey, is there stuff I've shut down towards in friendship?
So I've had some weird friendship cycles, different cycles of betrayal. So I've had to actually look at what are my beliefs about relationships and how is that played out, and what are the things that I bring to the table in relationship that create this cycle? What are the people that I pick? So I've had to look at it, but something that I found is I've kind of decided people are people. And so no matter what you do when you love, you're going to probably get hurt at some point.
Yes. And I have accepted no matter what I do, I'm going to get hurt in loving people. I get hurt often with you and vice versa. Is this true? Do we hurt each other?
That just tickled me because of how you said it. Often with you. Yeah, totally. Yes. But here's the thing. You can either look at pain and decide it's not worth it, or I can be like, there's going to be pain in life no matter what. It's a lie that if you lock people out, you'll have less pain.
Totally.
You'll just be alone.
With
and
more
in pain.
Suffering.
Yeah, you're going to have pain no matter what.
Stop suffering.
You might as well enjoy relationships. I've been listening to a bunch of studies they've done on happiness at Harvard and a bunch of the Ivy League schools.
Oh, big know-it-all Harvard. Oh, we're so smart and expensive.
And one of the things they say is that happiness level is not based on what we think it's often about. Like, so we often think it's about money or career or how significantly you contribute to the world or all those things. They actually say your relationships, having meaningful relationships is the number one cause of long-term satisfaction and fulfillment in life, helps you have better health, helps you get farther in life, having good relationships. So it's actually a really valuable thing.
Yeah, good point, Harvard.
Yeah, good job, Harvard.
Which, as a side note, I just want to make a note here. I'm going to try and get into Harvard and just fail out of it. I don't even care. I just want to be able to say, I went to Harvard. And here's what I have to say about this. And I'm like, he must be brilliant. He went to Harvard.
He went to Harvard. Oh, yeah, because you never have to say I graduated.
No, you don't got to say graduated. You just got to say
I went.
You know what? I might just take a trip to Harvard. I went to Harvard.
And this is what I'm
Not a lie. Choose your words wisely.
Okay, but anyway, so I decided personally for me, if I know I could get hurt in a friendship, I'm already like, okay, I could get hurt. But I have seen, I think, feeling love and having love in my life, even if it ends. So I've recognized there's friends. I love Tyler Perry. Gave the best analogy on friendship, changed my whole idea. It was in the middle of like a play.
Medea's?
Yeah, it was like in a play that he was in. He just ad-libbed it in the middle of the play, just went on a random spiel about relationships, and I loved it. But he said, the problem is that there's different kinds of friendships, relationships. Some are, it's like a tree. Some are like leaves. They're here for a season and then they're gone. Some are like branches. They're here for a longer season.
And then they fall off.
And then they break. Some are like the trunk, like it's sturdy and it's going to be like with you for good. And he said the problem is when we try to take a leaf and glue it to the trunk.
That's
like when
real.
we take the wrong people and try to put like I've tried to have forever friends. Like, oh, that was actually just a seasonal friend. Like I remember one of my closest friends years ago changed my life. I have so much love and respect for her, and really, really, like she changed my life. She showed me a whole new side of life that I'd never experienced before when I was super tormented. I actually think she kind of like parented me a little bit.
Yeah, I think she was a huge gift for you, actually.
Yeah, she was
massive gift.
Yeah, and so I loved it. And but the relationship ended, and what most people do then is they're like, oh gosh, like everything they gave me then is void, or I want to just throw it all out with the bathwater. None of the love was meaningful. And I get you have to grieve. I had to go in the process of grieving when it ended. But when I look back, I'm like, no, it wasn't a forever friend.
Right.
I was gluing a leaf. She was probably a branch because she was like there for 4 years.
Right.
And she was probably a branch. I was trying to make it my root system.
Yeah.
And she was never designed to be my root system.
That's so good.
And now I can see like, oh, it's a really great thing. And so when I can accept this friendship is what it is, and it doesn't have to be forever for me to throw out, then I can receive the love. And I'm like, that relationship changed me. The love for 4 years changed me. I'm not at the end of it being like, it wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
If you're sitting there being like, it wasn't worth it, unless they were hurting you the whole time.
Right.
In which case it really wasn't worth it. But if somebody actually loved you well and then it ends, all you got to do is learn how to go through the pain process, grieve it, and then you still get to have a bucket of love from that season.
That's true. And I think that we've kind of made a point in that way in the past on here. And let me back up. In order to really love people well in friendship, we have to know who they are and where to place them.
Yes.
I think that that's such a great foundation for the whole concept, because if you don't have that, then all of a sudden you're constantly responding and reacting and treating people poorly in the process and getting extra hurt by it rather than accepting it for what it is.
Yeah. So let's just say you have a friend that you want to be really, really close with, and they never return your calls.
Right.
If you decide to keep pursuing them as a best friend, you're literally deciding, I want to be disappointed and annoying. Like, because you're just not accepting what is.
Yep. And so once you're able to accept what they are and what role they fit inside of your life, it's all smiles.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes I do just want to mention, sometimes you just got to have a conversation to check in with somebody.
Yeah.
And say, hey, I would like to have you be more involved in my life. But is that something you're open to or not?
And I think that's one of the foundations to loving friends well, is learning how to be honest and confrontational and have good boundaries, like the dialogues that we begin to have to figure out, where do I place this person? What's really happening here? Here's what I'm feeling about this. And I think that if foundationally you don't know how to be really honest and open,
yes,
you're being a terrible friend.
Totally.
That's one of the most destructive elements inside of friendship, is when we can't be honest about our feelings and we deny and bury the emotions that we're having inside of the relationship, because what we create is a potential for a volcanic eruption.
Yes.
We talk about this inside of marriage, but it goes very much inside the context of friendship. Because all of a sudden, you're, a couple of years into the friendship and you've exploded and walked away. And the other person's like, I don't understand what just happened. Why are you ghosting me all of a sudden? I thought we were besties.
Right.
We have all this time. And you're just like, I hate you. I hate how you've hurt me.
Oh, yeah. They've secretly built a wall.
I do not understand what just happened.
Yes. So I think what you're saying is so key. One of the best ways to love your friends is to be honest and communicate. I had a friend do this, and she was like, hey, it was when I started getting sick. And so she'd invite me to do things all the time. And I would say no all the time, but not because I didn't want to do them, but because I didn't feel good enough to do them. So she had to sit down with me and be like, let's talk through our friendship. Mm-hmm. When you say no all the time, it hurts my feelings. I don't know if I should keep asking or not ask. I don't know if you value me as much as I value you. My love language is doing activities together. You can't do activities. So she just brought kind of to the table what is going on in her.
So good.
And I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to figure out how to say yes every once in a while. Like every 4 times, I'm going to find a way to start saying yes more and to start doing more activities with you. And what I need you to know is I'm never annoyed by you asking. Please keep asking.
Which she's one of our favorite people.
Yeah. And so we kind of, once we were able, because we had the honest conversation, no friction, no walls built up. And we were able to, in a season where we had very different needs and different love languages and different capacities, we were able to navigate around it with our words so that there wasn't any distance created.
Yeah. I want to go back to something you said earlier because I wanted to make note. You talked about
so
entire seasons mattering. I talk about the idea of collecting the love, historically going back and collecting the love that people have to give us. Mm-hmm. And that looks like a lot of times we bury entire seasons.
Yeah.
We go, oh my gosh, that person betrayed me. I hate them. Bam. Right. And it got buried.
Totally.
But there was actually maybe possibly, if we look at it and it wasn't some abusive relationship,
right?
We go, oh, they made one big mistake that was really devastating, but here's the history of this relationship. Here's all the fun we had. Here's the ways that they tried to take care of me and be there for me in these ways. Oh my gosh, that really mattered. And if we're willing to grieve the losses or the bad things properly, we can absorb the good things and still walk away being able to say, I'm so thankful for the season that relationship had a time frame for.
Yeah, it may be like, I will never do that again.
Right. I may never go back into that again. I don't want to do that
kind of relationship again, right. But I can feel all of the love that was there. I look back on a lot of my friendships from years ago and be like, we were so unhealthy, or we were so codependent, or whatever it is. We were a mess. But I think, you know what? We were loving each other as best as we knew how, and it helped change me.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. And like you said, it helped change me. What are the elements? We cannot, as we do life, there's this idea that you can't remove the things that people, the things that people leave in our life. I'm trying to find language for it.
The fingerprints they leave on our heart. That was the cheesiest thing I've ever said.
Did you get that off of a Hallmark card or something?
It felt like when it was coming out that it was like some kind of cliche.
You can't wash away the fingerprints someone's left on your heart. What is wrong with you? But I mean, it's true. It's like we can try and avoid it. We can try to bury it, or we can go, no, they're a fingerprint. This person was a fingerprint inside of my life. And in some ways it was a messy fingerprint. In some ways it was a beautiful fingerprint, but it was part of something that played a role in my life. And I'm going to look at that. I'm going to look at what I learned from it.
Yeah.
And all of that and value it.
I was thinking about one of the friends you had years ago that they ended up doing something really messy to betray you.
Yeah.
But you had so much fun with them before that happened. Like you guys laughed all the time. And so like, I think when we look back on that relationship from years ago, it's like, oh, that was the gift, was getting to have the joy and the laughter and the camaraderie.
Yeah.
And so it's just being able to collect the good in the midst of it.
Absolutely. So, I think that there's other practical ways to really be a good friend. And when we talk about the idea of being honest and stuff, that also bleeds into the idea of, showing up to a relationship and not being passive.
Yeah.
Being deliberate in many different ways. And communication is one of them. Confrontations and honesty is one of them.
Being intentional.
But why don't you kind of talk about like different ways that someone can show up in a relationship?
I remember like one time I posted that I was having a hard day and a friend showed up and just showed up to my house and just grabbed me and hugged me. Or I remember processing through something hard and somebody just grabbing a juice that I could have and showing up at my house with it.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes it's just my friends text me that they're having a rough day and I'm like, okay, come over and do this, or come let me feed you. Or it's just like, it's the act of being available.
Yeah, I think it's the idea of like, I'm trying to deliberately figure out how to love people inside of my life well, in the different avenues of love. Foundationally, I think, is what makes a good friend is the idea of showing up. I've had friends where they saw me post about something I was doing on Facebook and they're like, hey, do you want me to come over and help you out?
Yeah.
So that there was just the aspect of physical help.
Yeah, totally. It's kind of just thinking, are there ways that I can be involved in my friends' worlds?
One of the things that my mom was just astronomically amazing at was proactively seeing wants or needs. And again, she's been on here. We've had discussions about the pain in my childhood and stuff. Yeah. But my goodness, like if I ever made mention of some sort of action figure that I loved or thing that I wanted to do or whatever I liked, it suddenly showed up.
Yeah.
It literally, she was like, oh yeah, I went and got that for you. I made note of it. Or 6 months later, I have it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't. And I said it in passing. She's like, yeah, but I heard it.
Yeah.
I heard it and I made mental note of it. I did this the other day with a friend, which this is a funny story about friendship. I'm gonna tell on me being awesome, but also how funny it failed. So I have this friend, and he was casually talking about his upcoming birthday, and he said, my birthday is the 15th of this one month. And I quickly, like in the barrage of stuff I was doing, like typed his name in on the 15th of the month and then went back on with life.
Yeah. So
the 15th rolls around.
Yeah.
And
it shows up on your calendar.
Shows up on my calendar. And I in his world, I feel like words of affirmation are something that he really enjoys.
Yeah.
And I'm going, I think that's a way I can love him. So I send him this full video message.
Yeah.
And I'm telling him like, have an amazing day. Here's who you are. Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
The next day I'm driving in my car and I left it, didn't hear back from him, but I figure it's his birthday. He's busy. He's busy.
He's doing things.
And the next day I'm driving my car. I'm like, holy crap, his birthday's not for another 4 months. What was I doing? I'm pretty sure his birthday is whatever. So I send the second message. I'm like,
yeah,
you're probably a little confused as to why you got a birthday message today. And he had such a laugh about it, but he was like, here's what he got down to saying. He got down to saying, yeah, I didn't know. I wasn't quite sure why you decided that this was the 15th. That was my birthday. But I found myself feeling so loved because that's something that means so much to me.
Right.
The thought of it all landed completely the same.
Nobody's ever going to be annoyed that somebody's going out of their way to intentionally think of them.
Absolutely not.
Showing up is sending texts when you have somebody run across your mind.
Oh my gosh, when I get a text, if I get a couple texts that say, hey, I love you, you could just have nothing to do with me for months on end, but you send me a couple texts. I'm like, you like me. You thought of me. Oh, gee whiz.
Yeah. And part of this is, another part would be getting into somebody's world. So what is their love language?
It's huge.
What is their jam? What do they like doing or experiencing, or how do they like to be loved? And figuring out ways to love somebody outside of what is normal to you.
Oh, yeah. And we've talked about that inside the context of marriage. But a lot of times we're so stubborn in saying things like, oh, that's just not who I am.
Yeah.
I don't love like that. That's weird to me. Well, I don't care if it's weird to you. If you want to be a great friend, figure out ways that they like to be loved and then insert yourself into it. You know, there's been times where I did, especially early on in marriage, I did not roll with ways that you like to be loved.
That's the truth.
And I would show up and trying to meet you there. And even if I failed miserably, how did you feel?
I felt so loved because I could tell you were like, intention gets so many points.
Massive points for most people, especially when you tell your intention, like, hey, you know, I know that that may not have been as much as what you'd expect, but my intention was to figure out how to like be kind, caring, show you that I like you're my friend and you matter to me.
Totally. Yeah. So it's an important thing to be interested in another person. Don't be narcissistic. I
want to add something to don't be narcissistic.
Okay.
And be interested in someone. I want to take it to another place.
Take it.
I think a big part of that is asking questions.
I was going to say ask questions. I was trying to beat you to it because I think this is where he's going.
ask questions.
Yes.
I had a friend that I was
you had lunch with.
That I had lunch with, and we were progressing in our relationship, and I was just having a normal conversation where I asked him a bunch of questions.
How do you feel about that?
Yeah, what's going on in that world? It's just I'm interested in people.
Yeah.
And he walked away saying like,
he said, I don't know if I've actually ever had a real friend before. That's what he said. After that lunch, I realized I've never experienced this.
Right. And he had a history of people who had been dedicated to his life for a long period of time. And what that showed me is not that it was an isolated incident.
Right.
I'm like, I think this happens in a lot of areas that people don't get this. And
people don't know how to ask questions.
And when I feel like you're asking questions of me, it makes me feel like, oh, you want to know me, you want to understand me, my world matters to you. Some people freak out when they get questions asked. They think it's an interrogation. One time my grandma hit me because I was asking her questions. Did she? Yes. She smacked me and I was so caught off guard. And I was like, what was that for? She's like, why do you want to know so much? And I was like, just trying to be interested in her world. Okay, Grandma, go back to crocheting. I don't care. Leave me alone. Totally. Knit me a sweater. And if you ask questions like a drill sergeant or like a gossiper, like you just want to know the goods. But if you genuinely are interested in people, they can feel it. And I want to pause on something you just said. Oh. The idea of a gossiper. And I think that goes hand in hand with asking questions. If you are not a safe person with people's information, their secrets, or their life activities, that is just a recipe for absolute disaster and making people not feel like you're a good friend. Yeah. I think that information is vulnerable. Yeah. It's a form of vulnerability. I think it goes much deeper than information. Mm-hmm. And I think even in my life, so when I'm getting information from people, there'll be times if it feels like a normal talk, I'm like, is this a normal talk or is this something that's special to you? Yeah. If I'm not sure. Because sometimes people casually share and you think they've shared it with the world and you're not trying to divulge their information. You just think it's common knowledge. Yeah. And so I check in. I'm like, is that common knowledge or is that special to this relationship? Totally. But I think that if you can learn how to respect that information and be safe in that way, not only are you going to be a good friend to a person, but you're going to attract a lot of friends. Yeah. Because people are always looking for a safe place to share what they really think or feel and process their world with. Yeah. And I'm going to jump back to asking questions just because they actually say that... Why are you doing that? See what I did? Oh. I asked the question. Because you want to understand. I'm such a good friend. You're so good at it. Go. Okay. So they say that like pretty much every human wants to be able to talk about themselves. Like deep down, everybody wants to be known. Deep down, everybody wants to have connection and be seen and be heard. And so asking questions... Actually, I remember when I was a kid, a leader in my life being like, people will always love you because you're genuinely interested in them. And people love feeling like somebody's genuinely interested. Yeah. So it's a great way to be friends with somebody is to be curious about them and to want to know about their world. And I know I think questions is a love language that people just haven't been taught. Yeah, an unspoken love language. Yeah, an unspoken one. Well, I mean, like lots of people. I think it's just not in the book. Is all I'm saying. They should have. Yeah. It should be 7 love languages. It should include food and questions. Food and questions. It is. Yes. So, one of the things I wanted to say about when you're talking about the gossipers, another thing that makes you unsafe as a friend is if you're really judgmental. Yes, huge one. I think that's a great one to bring up. Even if you're judgmental of other people. When I've watched friends, pass those judgments about other people. I mean, we all have places where we're judging people. We're kind of like, oh, I don't know what I feel about that. We have opinions. That's fine. Yeah, we're trying to figure it out. But there's aggressive judgments where they're like, I can't believe. Look at how gross she is. Can you believe she wore white after Memorial Day? That's ridiculous. And can you believe what she's doing with her life? She's ruining everything. Her whole life's going to crap. She's an idiot loser. Yeah. And is he ever going to aspire to be anything? He's like all those harsh judgments. The minute I see that type of behavior as a normality, I'm like,
Run.
Slowly backing. Nope, running away. Huge red flags. And so you have to become someone who actually embraces compassion and empathy. And I think that is where we're leading with this. If you don't have a deep-hearted, relationship with those two things, you're going to be this judgment monster. Yeah. That you're never going to be a good friend.
Yeah. And here's the thing. When I see somebody who's really judgmental, I know they will turn that on me.
Absolutely. At some point in time. If they're judging
everyone else, they will turn it on me. And so here's the thing. Judgment feels good when it's you and the person against something.
Yeah. You're a team.
Because you're in. You belong. You're in. You belong to something and you feel superior.
Wait till you're out, though.
Yeah.
You've been ousted.
Yeah. And then you feel inferior. And judgment can bond people together. People join groups with people to look down on other people.
We love hating other people.
No, that's a big common bond.
That's why there's a bunch of church denominations.
So what happens, though, is that if they judge you, if they judge with you, will judge you eventually.
Absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So developing compassion and empathy, not just towards others, towards yourself, that's a huge thing. And then actually executing that towards people. Being able to step into somebody's life when they're in the midst of pain and problems and difficulties, having some level of connection with compassion, being able to go, oh my gosh, that is really painful and I see you. All of a sudden makes them not feel alone and abandoned, and they feel so supported inside of that.
Yeah.
I know I had so many times where during different phases of my sickness and stuff, people came over and just compassion was like, I'm just here to sit with you and love you. Mm-hmm. This is so difficult what you're going through. And just that. Yeah. That made me feel forever bonded to those people through that season.
Yeah. Well, and here's what it does is compassion and empathy helps you to not fix the other person.
Totally.
So when you're trying to fix the other person, friends are not going to feel loved. Compassion and empathy is, I'm going to sit here with you and be like, yeah, this sucks.
Yep.
Yeah, this is hard. I can't tell you how many times I've called Pizzi crying about what's going on in my body day to day, where she just cries with me and is like, yeah, this is really painful. Yeah, this feels really powerless. Or where I call her laughing about how ridiculous whatever thing I have to do is for my body, and she just laughs with me. There's a very deep bond that comes from just allowing yourself to be with people in the midst of pain. And that is compassion and empathy.
Yep. And you made the point of don't try to fix people, which is one of the main keys in being a good friend, is that I'm not here to fix you. I think that it's beautiful to come to the table and have, be available to troubleshoot if that's what they want and investigate. And like, is there a point in time where you want me to help troubleshoot this problem? And there are times when people ask me that, I'm like, absolutely. Oh my gosh, I feel so loved that you're going to sit down and help me figure this out. And I'm not going to have to flounder around on this. Right. I'm done talking about it. I've talked about it to like a dozen people. Just give me a solution here. Yeah.
Like if one of our friends is like, it's freaking out over her taxes. It's like, well, do you need help or are you just verbally processing?
Right. But that need to create solutions immediately, a lot of times that comes from wanting to alleviate others' pain so you don't have to feel their pain because you don't like seeing people in pain.
Totally.
And what that does is then they go, okay, I guess this isn't a place to share because what's going to happen is they're going to give me a solution and I might as well just tell them everything's good. The next time they ask me, how you doing? Yeah. I might as well say, I'm good. Yeah. Because they're just going to want me to get to good by giving me a solution.
Absolutely. Right. But there is, and this is, so sometimes showing up is helping people in practical ways. Like, oh, I'm going to help you. Sit down with you and I'll help you do your taxes. Right. There's been a lot of times where I've either asked people, I had somebody sit down with me to fill out a form because it was a really long form and I felt overwhelmed and I was like, I avoided it for so long. So she just came and sat and brought her computer so she could work on something. And then every time I wanted to scream or pull my like hair out, she'd be like, no, just keep doing it. That's a very practical way. And we're saying showing up in friendship is like that. But also then there's the other times when you actually just need somebody who's not trying to fix it. So is somebody more interested in meeting you where you're at, or is somebody more interested in shutting out the voice of your pain?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a great one.
I'm going to turn the tables a little bit.
Okay.
To be a good friend, I think you need to be, or to have a good friendship with somebody, you need to be able to be good at vulnerability. This is one of those things like, because a lot of the things we're saying is about loving other people, and loving other people isn't always vulnerable. Like, no. I can ask you questions. No,
I can hide behind loving other people all day long. I can come
do housework for you. I can do all of that. And that's beautiful. But like, unless I'm vulnerable, we're not actually bonding.
Yep.
Unless I'm receiving as much as I'm giving, unless I'm actually risking as much as I'm giving. Like, codependent people love it. They love doing everything for everyone else.
Oh, goodness. Yeah.
2s on the Enneagram.
It's a great place to hide.
Yeah. 2s on the Enneagram are like, I'll take care of everything for your life. I'll help you with everything. But that's not like, I'm not being vulnerable with my needs. I'm not allowing myself to have needs. Friendships that are healthy are 2-way streets.
Yeah.
So if you are like, I'm going to go help you cook, but you're never going to let them know when you need help with something, then you're missing out on a huge part of bonding. And if the other person, here's one of the things that changed my life is my friend was like, I will never bond to you, Abby, if you don't have needs.
Yeah.
Because this was me. I was really good at loving people, really poor at receiving love years ago.
Right. So in a lot of ways, it's not fully loving people.
No, that's selfish love. Yeah. I just get to feel like I have an ego boost from loving you, but I'm not actually paying the price for it.
Right.
And she was like, if I can't contribute, I bond through contribution, is what she said. And I actually understood that because I bond through contribution. So even if I'm loving somebody all the time and not telling them my needs, I still feel like we're really bonded.
Well, that's why a lot of times people end up walking out on marriages and different stuff like that.
Yeah.
Intimate relationships, because they didn't have an on-ramp into someone's life to actually pay a price. Mm-hmm. So, people will go, I just invested all of this time and all of this heart, and then they cheated on me.
Oh, yeah.
Like, yeah, of course they did. No, but why? What do you mean? Of course
I was the easiest person. I didn't cost a thing.
Yeah, they didn't have to do anything. That's the problem. They didn't have to do anything. They didn't have to pay a price for you. So all of a sudden they're like, I guess I don't matter to this person because nothing about me adds value to their life. I might as well not be in this space anymore.
Yeah.
But I'm losing something when I've invested. If I put $1 million into this relationship with you, it's really hard for me to go cheat on you.
Right.
Because I've already invested so much finances. And I mean, that's what's like in our relationship. I'm like, why would I go outside of this relationship? I just spent
I fought so
11 years, blood, sweat, and tears fighting with you and for you to have this.
Yeah.
This doesn't look appealing over here because that'll be bankrupting all the money I just put into my investment.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You're my little investment.
I know. It's true. The more you invest into relationships, like the more I've had to fight for relationships, the more I've had to be vulnerable, the more I've had to pay a price for people, the more I'm in it for good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But so there's this thing of I'm going to love you and I'm going to allow myself to be loved by you. Mm-hmm. So many people are scared to receive. So many people are scared to have needs. And it leaves other people feeling like, well, what do I have to give?
Yeah.
And if people feel like they don't have anything to contribute, they're like, I'm going to go somewhere else. Because actually it feels great when you feel like your contribution matters to somebody. It feels fulfilling. And so if you have friends that never have needs, you never get to feel like you get to meet them.
Yep.
And so that's something to grow in healthy relationships is to have both people having needs, being vulnerable, allowing themselves to receive love.
I'm going to put it back on to the other direction. And I want to talk about being interested in people's interests.
Oh.
Because I think that...
I'm not interested in what you have to say about this. I'm over it.
I don't care. Stupid. Well, I know that part of love languages is that, like, figuring out how does someone feel loved is an avenue of that. But specifically getting involved in people's interests. We've talked about in the past how you were a football watcher. You loved football, and I just didn't care.
And you liked cartoons. Mm-hmm. And I hated cartoons.
Mm-hmm. And... I veered towards the process of going, all right, I'm going to start rooting for the Broncos. And I started at a good time because they were doing well.
Yeah, right. You did. You picked a great year when we had a quarterback.
Great season of life when we had a quarterback.
Yes.
But it was like, oh no, I'm going to love this because you love it. And I didn't eat, sleep, and breathe football. I didn't learn about all the other football teams. I didn't care. But I did care.
You didn't become obsessive.
I didn't become obsessive. But it was enough that I could sit down and be like, it's Broncos! Sunday night Broncos! And getting excited, like, where are we going to go? What bar are we going to watch this at?
And you at least knew what a touchdown was.
What's a touchdown?
Yeah. No, you learned all the terms, which was wonderful for me.
Defensive line. Offensive line.
I feel like this is
I got them for days.
This is one that I think really... And this goes back to asking questions, being interested in somebody's world. Like I would have to ask Justin, like, why do you like 1980s G.I. Joe cartoons? But actually you would tell me why you liked things and it was really endearing to me. And then it helped me really like you.
I'd be talking about Ninja Turtles and I'd be like, here's the bond of brotherhood between these 4 turtles and how they're overcoming all kinds of odds and fighting darkness, and it's beautiful how they lay their life down for each other.
Totally.
Like, got that all out of Turtles, huh? Cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
It's so true. I was like, wow, that was deeper to you than I knew.
Most people probably.
Yeah. So it's a valuable thing to be interested in what people are interested in. And it just, even if you're like, I'm going to do this thing with you. Oh, you love playing pool? I'm going to go play pool with you. I might be horrible. My dad was really good at this. If I liked basketball, he'd go shoot hoops with me. If I liked soccer, he'd go kick a ball with me. If I liked, he was just like, I'm game to be engaged.
Yeah.
I was not as good at reciprocating because his hobbies were more like clean the kitchen and hike. I was like, why do your hobbies involve me having to sweat?
It's so funny. I was just thinking about this as a side note. There's some things that you've made mention that you love. Maybe it's a movie, a cartoon, it represents something. And then I will find interest in your interest by finding an action figure.
Totally.
I'll be like,
okay.
Here's this Wonder Woman action figure I found because you so love the movie. And it's like she doesn't want action figures, but it's me combining my love for action figures. I did this to my sister recently. She has this historic love of Bob Ross. For those of you who don't know, Bob Ross was a painter through the 60s to the 90s.
Yeah.
Had a show from the 80s and the 90s, maybe in the late 70s too. I can't remember. But he would just sit in one room, one shot, and just paint something from ground up. And he'd be like, and you can be a painter too. You just need
just put a little bit of the tree right
a little
there.
touch of green here. And you got a mountain and a little touch of yellow here. And all of a sudden, you got yourself some flowers. And you're a friggin' artist. Okay, Bob Ross. No, you're not. You're a liar.
Funny.
But I knew that she loved it. She would be like, oh, I get so much peace out of watching Bob Ross. And then so for Christmas, a Bob Ross action figure shows up on her doorstep. And I didn't see her face, but I'm sure it was like, okay. But I'm speaking your love language.
You're trying so
You're
hard,
interested in Bob Ross. Anyways, moving forward.
That's hysterical.
Verbal gratitude, I want to say, is the last one.
Yeah, let's end with this one. I've said it once, I'll say it a million times. I know they say that words of affirmation is a love language, and some people say they don't care and it doesn't matter. But they also have done so many studies on the power of words. You know, the famous one where they speak life over one plant and over water, and it like becomes these beautiful crystals, and they speak death over the water and it becomes these ugly fragmented crystals under a microscope. Like, they have done so many.
I'm sure Snopes have proven that's all fake, but whatever.
There are a lot of real studies about the power of words.
There are a ton of them.
All of the self-help books.
Yes,
they all
absolutely.
say the power of words.
And words absolutely become things that affect our lives.
Yeah, they create worlds.
And I think that that's why the verbal expression of love is so stinking powerful.
Yeah. And so I'm just like, it's a constant gratitude. It can't be one day a year I tell you on Valentine's Day all the reasons that I love you, or on your birthday all the reasons I like being friends with you.
Right. And that's why Valentine's Day doesn't matter in our relationship.
Yeah, I know. It's true.
Because we have a lifestyle of communicating our gratitude and our thankfulness, which is what creates such a bond between us so often. Because a lot of couples and friends kind of are always just in complain mode inside of themselves about what isn't. But there is true gratitude. And what it does is it pulls us so close together because we know, oh, I know how this person feels about me. It's funny. I had one person, their dad wrote them a letter for the first time in their life. Simple one. It was a simple one too.
Yeah.
It was like, I'm really proud of you for having a job, or just,
totally.
Something so very basic in it. And they're like, and all I could see is how starved they were.
Totally.
Of verbal affection, because they'd never had that their entire life. Imagine what that could have done to someone's world if that was consistent.
Oh yeah. And there's this thing that people, we could all do a podcast on just how to get favor, but when people enjoy life, you like being around them.
Oh yeah. Somebody who enjoys life. We have
a friend who's a lot like that. Like everything we do, she's like, oh my gosh, I love this. And oh my gosh, I love that. And oh my gosh, I love this.
She's not even fake about it. It's just,
no, there's no fake. If you're fake about it, it's just annoying.
You can tell it and you can feel it if you're working it up.
Yeah. But it's gratitude for everything. And actually, after your nervous breakdown, you became a different human, and you are that person now. Now you're like, oh my gosh, Abby, I'm having so much fun being with you. I'm having so much fun doing errands with you. I really like that we work together. I used to bitch and moan about
so much stuff. I mean, not even aggressively, but I mean, sometimes aggressively, but they'd always be like, oh man, this is driving me nuts.
Yeah.
Whatever. Nope. I'm just thankful I'm friggin' alive.
Yeah. And you're like, whatever you focus on magnifies. So the words actually halfway affect you, and they halfway affect the person, because it's reminding you what you love about somebody. In relationships all the time, I'm like, if you want to keep love alive in a friendship, in a dating relationship, in a marriage, then you need to keep your words of life flowing. Totally. That's what keeps love alive. And so verbal gratitude is just like, oh my gosh, I love when you're, like Justin does this when our friends come over. I love that you're in our house. I love how our house feels when you're here. Oh, I just feel so relaxed in your presence. It's just a narrating of the goodness we're getting to experience by being friends.
I'm connected to I'm connected to myself, and I'm aware of myself, and I'm sharing the reality that's going on inside of me.
Yeah.
Inside of that. So homework. How about we do a quick homework?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think it'd be good for you to think through, what are some areas I want to intentionally step up the game in how I'm loving people?
Yeah.
Like, how can I intentionally, what is it that I'm not good at? And I would pick something you're not good at to intentionally step up the game. You're like, oh, I'm really good at cooking people food. I'm just going to add another night of doing that for people. And when instead you're like, I never ask questions. Why don't you start there?
Yep. Veer away from something you're not doing. Now, another thing that I would say for homework is take one of your closest friends, go to them and have an honest inventory check on just one simple thing. Just say, I want you to give me one area where I could love you better or be a better friend.
One area that you feel like I'm loving you really well.
Great.
Yeah. So because I never do an inventory check that's only negative. You got to do positive and negative.
Great. I'll take that.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. Anything else?
Yeah, I have one more homework. I want you to assess yourself. How am I in our relationships? Am I being vulnerable? Am I allowing people to love me? Am I having needs? Am I giving? Am I receiving? Am I being honest with people about what's going on inside of me? So take an inventory check, not only in how you're loving people, but also, is there something you need to change?
Right. So last but not least, remember, if you got anything out of this podcast, to rate, review, subscribe, and share. Because really, at the end of the day, we just want to see people get transformed. And rate, review, subscribing, and sharing can look like...
It helps get the word out.
Yeah. jump on, whether it's iTunes or whatever platform you listen to, or jump on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and share about how you're affected by the episode of the podcast. Whatever you want to do. We just want to get it out there.
You know what? Send this episode to your friends and tell them the things they do good.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, and tell them to do the same to you.
Yeah. What did I do good? What am I doing good?
All right.
Tell me.
Tell me. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you later.